the development of the factory system, steam power and machines in the British Industrial Revolution, c. 1750–1850. The factory system represented one of the most profound transformations of the British Industrial Revolution. It marked the shift from dispersed, small-scale handicraft production, the domestic or putting-out system, to centralized, mechanized production in large buildings where workers operated machines under disciplined supervision. This development was driven by innovations in textiles, powered first by water and then increasingly by steam, alongside advances in iron production that provided durable machinery and structures. The interplay of these elements, iron, steam power, textiles, and the factory system, created a self-reinforcing cycle of mechanization, economies of scale, and rapid industrial growth after 1780. While the factory system dramatically increased output and lowered costs, it also brought social costs, such as harsh working conditions. This essay argues that steam power was the decisive enabler of the mature factory system, but its impact depended on prior and concurrent developments in textiles and iron. Without these foundations, steam alone could not have produced the revolutionary changes seen after 1780. The factory system did not emerge suddenly, but evolved from earlier mechanization in the textile industry, which created the initial pressure for centralized production. In the mid-18th century, British textiles, particularly cotton, faced surging domestic and export demand, stimulated by colonial trade and population growth. Traditional hand spinning and weaving in cottages could not keep pace. Key inventions addressed this bottleneck. John Kay's flying shuttle, 1733, accelerated weaving, increasing demand for yarn. James Hargreaves' spinning jenny, patented 1770, invented c. 1764, allowed one worker to spin multiple threads simultaneously, multiplying productivity. However, these early machines were still hand- or water-powered and suited to small workshops or domestic settings. Richard Arkwright's water frame, 1769, marked a crucial step towards the factory. Powered by water wheels, it produced stronger yarn suitable for warp threads and required a centralized location near fast-flowing rivers. Arkwright opened the first true water-powered cotton mill at Cromford, Derbyshire, in 1771. This mill employed hundreds of workers, many women and children, in disciplined shifts. Arkwright's system introduced key features of the factory: division of labor, machine supervision, and capital-intensive production. By the 1780s, dozens of such mills operated in Lancashire and Derbyshire. Samuel Crompton's spinning mule, 1779, combined the jenny and water frame, producing fine, strong yarn in even larger quantities. Edmund Cartwright's power loom, 1785, improved in the 1820s mechanized weaving, though it took time to become reliable. These textile innovations demonstrated the advantages of concentrating production, better quality control, faster throughput, and economies of scale. Yet water power had limitations. It restricted factory location to rural river valleys and was unreliable in dry seasons or floods. This created the need for a more flexible power source: steam. Steam power provided the breakthrough that allowed the factory system to mature and spread to urban centers. Thomas Newcomen's atmospheric engine, 1712, had already been used to pump water from mines, but it was inefficient and consumed vast amounts of coal. James Watt's improvements, patented in 1769, separate condenser, and developed with Matthew Boulton from 1775, transformed the engine into a reliable, fuel-efficient source of rotary motion. Watt's engine could power machinery directly rather than merely pumping water to drive wheels. The first steam-powered cotton mill opened in Manchester in 1789. Papplewick or similar early examples followed. By the 1790s, steam began replacing or supplementing water power. Steam's advantages were decisive. Factories could locate near coal supplies, labor pools, or markets rather than rivers. Production became continuous and independent of weather, and engines scaled to drive multiple machines simultaneously. The symbiotic relationship between steam and textiles accelerated growth. Cotton imports rose dramatically, from about £5 million in 1781 to over £56 million by 1800, fueled by cheap raw cotton from the Americas and mechanized processing. Steam-powered spinning and weaving reduced costs sharply. A pound of cotton yarn that cost 38 shillings in 1786 fell to under 3 shillings by the 1830s. This price drop expanded markets at home and abroad, creating further demand that justified larger factories. By 1835, around 75% of cotton mills used steam power. The factory system thus became the dominant mode of textile production, with giants like Quarry Bank Mill or the mills of Manchester employing thousands. Historians such as T.S. Ashton emphasized that steam liberated industry from natural power constraints, enabling the takeoff after 1780. Iron production was equally essential, providing the material foundation for both machines and steam technology. Pre-industrial iron-making relied on charcoal-smelted pig iron in small forges, limiting output and quality. Abraham Darby I's coke smelting process, 1709, perfected by his son in the 1750s, substituted abundant coal-derived coke for scarce charcoal, dramatically increasing output and lowering costs. Henry Court's puddling and rolling process, 1783–84, produced high-quality wrought iron bars efficiently. These advances supplied cheap, strong iron for machinery frames, engine cylinders, boilers, and later railways. Without improved iron, Watt's steam engine could not have been built at scale. Early engines required precise cylinders that only iron foundries could provide. Conversely, steam engines powered ironworks, creating a virtuous circle. Better iron enabled better engines, which produced more iron. By 1800, British pig iron output had risen from around 25,000 tons in 1700 to over 250,000 tons. Iron also supported factory construction. Cast iron beams and columns allowed larger, multi-story buildings resistant to fire and vibration from heavy machinery. The factory system integrated these elements into a new organization of work. Factories concentrated fixed capital, machines, buildings, power sources, and variable capital labor in one place. Division of labor, as described by Adam Smith, increased efficiency. Workers specialized in single tasks rather than completing an entire product. Discipline was enforced through factory rules, bells, and overseers. Time became commodified. This system spread beyond textiles to ironworks, pottery, Josiah Wedgwood, and engineering. By the 1830s–40s, the factory system dominated key sectors, contributing to Britain's position as the workshop of the world. The consequences were transformative yet uneven. Economically, the factory system drove rapid growth. Industrial production rose at 3–4% per annum after 1780, far outpacing earlier periods. Textiles led, but iron, coal, and engineering followed. Transport improvements, canals, then railways powered by steam distributed raw materials and goods efficiently. Socially, factories created an urban proletariat, accelerating urbanization. Manchester's population grew from 10,000 in 1717 to over 300,000 by 1851. Working conditions were often harsh: long hours, 12–16 per day, low wages for unskilled labor, including children, and dangerous machinery. Child labor scandals documented by parliamentary inquiries, e.g., Sadler Committee 1831–32, highlighted exploitation. However, factories also offered regular employment, and for some skilled workers, higher wages than domestic industry. Historians debate the standard of living. Pessimists, e.g. Engels, stressed misery, while optimists, e.g. Ashton, noted eventual real wage rises after 1820. Government responses evolved slowly under laissez-faire principles. Early Factory Acts 1802, 1819, 1833 regulated child labor and hours, but enforcement was weak until inspectors gained power. The 10 Hours Act 1847 marked greater intervention. Politically, industrialization stimulated reform demands, Chartists and protest, Luddites smashing machines in 1811–16, fearing unemployment. Yet factories also fostered trade unions and cooperative societies. In evaluation, steam power was pivotal to the mature factory system after 1780, freeing production from location constraints and enabling mass output. However, it built upon textile mechanization, which created demand, and iron advances, which supplied materials. Without prior water-powered factories and coke-smelted iron, steam's impact would have been delayed. The factory system was not inevitable, but resulted from entrepreneurial innovation, capital availability, abundant coal, and a flexible social structure that rewarded risk-taking. Its development explains Britain's early industrial supremacy, but also the social strains that accompanied rapid change. By 1850, The factory, powered by steam and built with iron, had redefined work, wealth, and society in Britain, laying foundations for modern industrial economies.